Hi everyone, welcome back.
Hey, welcome. Rose and Pros. What are we doing here? Want to remind folks?
We are talking about The Bachelorette, which is in which season now?
21.
And we are also talking about anything that is related to that. So the show is called Rose and Prose. It's about The Bachelorette, and it's about any kind of writing or lyrics or songs, culture that comes to the table and is part of that discussion. Let's dive right in, huh?
Yeah, let's do it. Well, so last night, second episode of Bachelorette, season 21, Jenn took, first time in history, Jenn took all the guys to Melbourne, Australia. Usually they're in LA for a few weeks before they let people, start traveling the world. So, super fun to see a different part of Australia. I've never really gotten to see Melbourne on TV. Never gotten to see any of Australia in real life. So if anyone wants to sponsor us to go, we're ready to go.
We actually thought about going there for our honeymoon.
And then we did, yeah.
And then we decided to go to Paris and London and see the wineries there, which I thought was great. I did not feel slighted at all. I felt great. But I think Australia is just one of those things that still is on our list. So it was really cool to see it on the show. I'm not sure that I thought all the things that they did in Australia were cool, like the spiders and snakes.
What about eating kangaroo testicle?
No, thank you. It's not for me.
Jenn put kangaroo testicle in her mouth in front of, 8 of her boyfriends. It's fine.
That's great. That's so great. That's so good for her. That is not for me, though. So.
Yeah, so first date was like 8 guys at the market. Very early on in the episode, it's very clear that Devin is there for Jenn. He ran up, gave her the biggest hug, picked her up more so than other guys, pulled her away from the rest of the date.
For some gelato or ice cream or whatever that was. And then continued to do that for the rest of the episode. The guys really took issue with that. All this private time that he was carving out for himself, and Jenn seemed to be fine with it. She was like, that's great. That's why we are here. Of course, she had been on The Bachelor herself, so she kind of knows how the game is played.
Yeah, she knows how the game is played, but I really felt like she was very much advocating for herself and didn't necessarily care what was happening with other people as long as it was about her, which I feel like if it was me, I kind of would have been like, oh, I want you to play nice with other people, and if you don't know how to play nice with other people, maybe we need to talk. But I felt like she really was advocating for herself. She took charge. She definitely took the lead on when she wanted to kiss people.
She was quite affectionate. Was really trying to test out the guys over the course of the night and their kissing abilities. I think that was one of the things that stood out to me, is that Jenn was really testing these guys throughout the entire episode. I mean, she tested them when they went to do stand-up. It seems as though they did not know when they were on this date. It was the very first activity that they had, and she just kind of threw them into doing stand-up and having to write jokes. I thought that it was unfortunate that so many of them wrote jokes that were zingers against Devin. A lot of them just they weren't funny, and it also spent so much time talking about Devin, which I think is what he wanted in the end, because they just kept putting his name in their mouths, and Jenn is the audience who's watching this. But then she kind of moved them around, and the next activity was to go on this little adventure and hold these exotic animals like snakes and spiders. And
that was a different date.
Well, I'm saying over the course of the trip.
Yeah. But different guys.
And so she was really testing them out and seeing, were they going to rise to the occasion? And so I think part of that was it seemed to me as though she had to know that at least one guy was going to try and peel her off and spend time with her. And I think that she wanted to see who was going to do that, and it seemed to be Devin. I got to give him chops. Last week we talked about I think his name was Brian, who had this situation with the car and kind of broke into someone else's time with Jenn and was just really trying to play this alpha male thing, took the keys to the car away from another guy. It was just very aggressive and strange and uncomfortable. But in this episode, it seemed as though Devin was just not making apologies for that and was not doing it. I felt, maybe you would read this differently, but it felt to me like he wasn't doing it in a jerkish way. He wasn't doing it to put any of the guys down. In fact, he was taking efforts to not do that. And even in explaining and defending himself, he was saying, I am not here for other guys. I am here to meet Jenn. Period. Full stop. And I'm not sorry about that. And I gotta say, I respect that. When he is taking the approach that I am here for one reason, to get to know someone, and I am going to do that, and not do it in a way that puts others down.
I don't feel like he handled the cocktail ceremony very well, because what I saw was these guys saying we got no time with her because on there was a group date where they went and took pictures with animal wildlife from Australia. So there was snakes, spiders, all sorts of things. And she chose Dylan to go for the evening date. So all of the other guys went home. They had no time with her one-on-one. And so Devin had said, like, I respect you guys. We respect you. We'll let you have your time. And he pulled her away before she could even finish cheersing the guys. Like, they always do a toast to kick off the cocktail party. She literally had not even brought her glass in to toast the other guys when Devin pulled her away. And I feel like maybe you should have said, like, hey, I respect you guys. I'm going to only have her for 5 minutes at the beginning, and then you can have her. Like, I just felt like, man, like, that's so aggressive. Like, you're not even letting her be present in this moment that might be memorable. I don't know.
She seemed into it, though.
I'm on the fence with Devin right now.
To his credit, she seemed fine with it. She was making out with him. Yeah. She was engaging with him. And then when someone else tried to interrupt them and pull him away to kind of, tell him his place, she seemed disappointed. Mm-hmm. So he was Devin was reading the room correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very clear that the producers are making him out to be the villain.
I think this whole scenario, like across the entire episode, brings up this issue that we've seen in previous seasons about the entitlement that people feel on the time of the Bachelor or the Bachelorette. It's like you're in this group and you are a guest on these dates and you feel entitled to this person's time and attention. And then when you pull the center of the show away, everyone else gets offended because they feel entitled to that time too. And it just creates this it creates a lot of drama, and it's at times uncomfortable for the audience, but I think that it's just part of the show that I don't particularly like, and yet it's still part of the show. I think that it kind of brings up this issue with reality television that it's not reality, it's like an exaggerated drama that we're still trying to negotiate. Like, us as viewers are still trying to negotiate that line between what is real and what is contrived and what is this drama that has been created by the producers to make something. And when I am aware of that as an audience, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, let's lean into that a little bit. Like, how much we know that there is producers, like, all the castmates are assigned a producer. When you see these interviews to the camera, it's actually a producer, like, probing them and asking them questions behind the camera. But, like, at what point is the production, like, the entertainment value is great, but does it ever get cruel? I mean, I'm not going to remember his name, but they know your fears, right? They make these people applying to be on the show fill out hundreds of pages of their greatest fears, what kind of trips, what kind of countries they want to visit, what kinds of activities they would love to do and hate to do. So this guy's like, I am deathly afraid of spiders. And he's on the wildlife, photo shoot date, and it's like they bring out a spider. And it's like, I felt like I knew that was coming. Like,
sure,
this is what these producers do.
Sure.
But like, what point is it cruel?
Well, I would ask, what point is it a character? How much of this is authentic that we're watching? As I said, and I think our first episode is that I'm more of the pessimist. You're more of the romantic. I'm more of the pessimist. Because I think so much of this is just contrived, that we're dealing with characters and not real people. And perhaps that's why the characters feel that it's okay to be cruel to one another, is because you're not really dealing with a person. You're dealing with another character.
But I think the producers create the characters.
But the characters are in that domain.
Because I think it's how they edit. I think it's how they edit the show. I think it's how, that guy wasn't faking being afraid of spiders. I mean, everyone was laughing at him. He was terrified. And even Jenn, like what we've said in previous episodes, like I love how adventurous she is, and she wants to be with someone who's adventurous, and she wanted to go skydiving, but she also was terrified of it. Like I've sometimes have said I want to go skydiving, and I also look at her and I'm like, oh my God, she's so much more calm. I think I would be bawling my eyes out before I jump out of a plane.
So using this as a springboard, I think that one of the things that I appreciated, although I didn't appreciate it initially while it was just starting, is that she goes on a date with Marcus, who is an Army Ranger.
Yeah, let's talk about Marcus.
And I think that as audiences, we know that what we're about to see is that emotional moment where someone confesses something. It's like out of nowhere, you're having this nice dinner. You haven't even finished your appetizers or your hors d'oeuvres, and then, let me tell you about my trauma. And I think that it's, hang on here. So I think that it's kind of uncomfortable for me as an audience member, again, to watch this, knowing that this moment is just expected, that the producers have probably cultivated it. And it's like you dive right in, like, hi, my name is Marcus, and I also had this very traumatizing event when I was in the military, and it's really messed me up, and then you're just kind of sitting there wiping your tears away, and the star of the show is just sitting there uncomfortably, like, there, it's okay, I'm here now, but I'm gonna reject you. Yes, I very much am. However, I will say this. That is the initial 10 seconds of what is happening with Marcus as he is sharing what happened to him while he was deployed. And as it went on, I think that it was a very real moment. It was not crafted and shaped or played upon by the producers. I think that he was just, his voice was trembling. He was clearly uncomfortable sharing this thing, but it felt like such a big hurdle for him to share. This is who I am. This is why I may seem weird at times. So, this brings us to the first trip that Lizzie and I took together. Is that...
Wait, I don't get to talk about Marcus?
Okay, talk about Marcus.
Sorry. I mean, come on. I like Marcus a lot. I'm excited to see more of their relationship develop because I felt like he was really vulnerable. I also felt like he was extremely kind. Like... Doing the skydiving, he was extremely supportive of her. He saw that she was a little bit nervous, and he was like her greatest champion. And that was actually like such a perfect example of Jenn taking charge. Like Jenn was so overcome with like joy and relief and for getting on the ground, but also that he helped her through that when they went to hug, like she took him in for a kiss because she was just like, oh my gosh, I feel this for this person. But I also feel like you and I have never had to have 6 to 8 weeks to get to know someone well enough to potentially propose to someone. And I mean, these people are in such a time crunch that the only way that you can build a relationship is by being vulnerable soon and opening up yourself soon. I also would remind you that you and I had very deep conversations in the first weeks of dating, whether through text or through phone call or in person.
Mm-hmm.
And those were not contrived, but we also got, hey, my name is Lizzie, and, I'm a product of divorce. And so, I think, like, yes, it feels uncomfortable for us, the viewer, because we feel like we don't know anything about this guy, but there's more conversations that we're not seeing that happen because they have so much film that they have to edit down.
Mm.
So there's me, the optimist. But I'm excited to see what happens with Marcus. I think he seems like a good guy. So we'll see. But yeah, let's talk about our first trip. So these guys are going on their first trip with Jenn to Australia. And we took our first trip within 2 months of dating to New York City. Had you ever been to New York before we went to New York?
I had not been to New York. I had heard great things about it. The Big Apple, Broadway, pizza, highlights. So our first trip, we go to New York, and I think this is where I was going with this, is that you and I had some really deep conversations pretty much right away.
Yes.
And I am being positive, or I'm trying to be positive about Marcus. What I'm saying is that it's uncomfortable when it's a clearly crafted moment for television. But when it's truly sharing yourself with someone, I think that there's something very touching about that. And so, as an Enneagram 5, whatever that might mean, I do not do superficial conversations. I like to get right into it. I like to know about the trauma because I like to know how people tick. Like, I want to be in your brain. I want to understand who you are, not the superficial veneer that we all wear, but who you really are. And to that end, we had shared a lot before our trip. And we go to New York, and I'm meeting your family. And, of course, meeting the family, there's always that screen.
Yeah, it wasn't just our first trip. It was also, let's go to New York, and the second we get there, you're actually going to meet my parents for the first time ever.
And so we go, and, there's the initial conversation in the car as we're driving around. And then we get home for dinner, or we get to your family's home for dinner. And there's always that screening process, and Lizzie's mom pulls me aside, and she says, "So, tell me, what do you love about my daughter?" And the honest answer that came out of my mouth, as surprising as this might have been at the time, the honest answer that came out of my mouth was, she's broken. And that's what I love about her, is that she's a real person. And I think that there is something about getting past this image. When you're dating, you want to make everything look great. You want to dress up. You want to be perfect. And absolutely, that is a very fun game. I'm very positive about that game. But there's also something really rewarding about sharing who you really are and putting it out there. And so when I said this to her mom, I could clearly tell that her mother was like, "What?" But I think that her mom got it right away, that what I was really saying was, Lizzie is a real person, and I love all of those pieces, even the broken pieces, and I'm falling more in love with those broken pieces as I'm getting to know your daughter. And I would wish that on everyone who is a contestant on the show, is that they really share themselves, even if it is difficult, even if your voice is trembling when you do it. That you are able to break away from the contrived moments and the contrived drama to get to the real stuff, because I think that is where you can truly fall in love, is not the everything is perfect, but who you really are. And I would say that even today. I mean, we've been together for a number of years.
This week has not been perfect.
And I think that one of the things that it almost has become this low-running thing in the back of my head, that I can detect when things are wrong with Lizzie, even if she herself is not able to detect it at times, because I'm able to kind of hear the notes of the voice. I'm able to hear things and see things before she's even able to articulate it. And I think that, at least for me, this is how I recognize it, is that when you know someone so well that you're able to read their voice and the flick and the twitch of their eyes, that's when I think you actually have something. So.
Wow.
Where you want to go from there? What you want to say after that?
I feel like that's where we need to end it. I don't know. I think I'm a little speechless right now.
There's so much here that I have in my notes. I could talk about how Aaron is a gaslighter, claiming to be this expert in human behavior. There's so much more to say. The importance of a sense of humor, of knowing your fears. But yeah, let's go ahead and end it there. And we look forward to seeing what happens next week. Do you remember what's going to happen next week? Are we doing hometowns next week?
No hometowns.
Don't come.
Wait, that's several weeks away. I don't think they announced that they're going somewhere else yet. Admittedly, I think I was just like so. My memory is drawing to the rose ceremony and seeing, that both Thomas N. and Devin got roses. Thomas N. had pulled Devin aside. That was kind of like, ooh, because then Jenn was left alone for like 10 minutes. Like, he should have at least planned for someone else to come and take her time instead of leaving her alone. That was probably not the best move. And so those are one of those questions where I'm like, okay, did the producers tell her to keep him, or did she just didn't like the other guys? She liked him more than the other guys. So, I'm excited about the season because I feel like Jenn is truly listening to her heart. So we'll see what happens next week. See you then.